Hi friends, get comfy, let's talk. For those of you who have been here before, hi, welcome back, I'm super excited to see you. If you're new, hi, my name's Gabby, and I'm super excited that you decided to spend some time with me today. So today, I'm showing you a part of my filming setup that is absolutely critical, but is always off camera. My TBR bookshelf. This is a bookshelf that is filled entirely with books that I own, that I bought with my money, but for one reason or another, have not read yet. Now, this is where I shame myself a little bit because, as you may have noticed, not all of my unread books fit on the TBR shelf. There are, I believe, as of writing the script, there were 95 books that I own that I have not read, but since writing the script, I have since read, I believe, 3. So I think we're down to 92. That's a lot. I've seen booktubers with worse, right? I was looking, I can't remember whose channel it was. I'll have to go back and find it. But there's a booktuber who I saw she did kind of like a similar video talking about her TBR and the unread books that she has. And she had almost 500. I don't even know if I own 500 books. So maybe next time I'm told not to buy a new book, I'll just bring that video up and show it as like a, hey, could be worse. I could have almost 500 unread books, but that's not my point right now. So like I said, behind me and next to me, I have around 90 something books. Let's call it 92 for now. Books that I own but have not read yet. So I built myself an insane color coding system to hopefully chip away at those numbers a little bit. Now, the way I wanted to do this was a little weird because I wanted to be able to both organize it by the vibe of the book and the amount of brain power it would take for me to read. I couldn't choose between the two systems, so I found a way to do both. That's also why I have 4 jars instead of just one TBR jar. So what we're gonna do is I'm going to break down the color coding system first, and then we'll talk about the 4 different jars and why I have it organized that way as well, instead of just throwing it all in one jar and calling it a day. So we'll break down the color coding system first, and then I'll introduce you to the 4 different jars and some of the books that I have here behind me that I'm either really excited to read or not so much, but we'll get to it. So the number of colors that I chose to use for this system was purely for aesthetic reasons. When I was looking at cardstock that I wanted to get for the jars, because I knew I didn't want to use just regular printer paper for durability reasons, I wanted these slips to really be able to hold up. I was shopping and I found a pastel pack of cardstock. Let me see if I'm not gonna grab it. So I found this pastel pack of cardstock and I thought it was really cute. So that's what I bought, and it came with 5 colors. So that's why there are 5 colors for my kind of coding system. Now, if you've read any of these books that I'm gonna list as we're breaking down some of the books I have for each of the 5 categories, please know that's fine if I'm wrong. The whole point is that I wanted to organize it by the vibe that I think the book has before I start reading it. If I end up being wrong, then it's okay. I'm wrong. At least I'll have read the book. First, we have the paper color Pink Rose, and that's what it's called in the cardstock pack, so that's why I'm calling it that. I wanted Pink Rose to be for books that are romantic, feel good, historical, but like in a sweet way, that very kind of like soft, pretty aesthetic when you're thinking about the vibes of the book. So that's where we have Emma, the other Boleyn girl, which I have right behind me. Memoirs of a Geisha is also going to fit in there. What the River Knows, and The Chosen and the Beautiful, right? Those are just some examples. Next, we have our purple color, which is called Sweet Lilac, which in this case is kind of ironically named because this is where you're going to find everything that's dark, gothic, mystery, kind of murder-y, dramatic kind of books. So this is where you're going to find Rebecca, Frankenstein, The Haunting of Hill House, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, Assistant to the Villain, right? That's the kind of vibe we're talking here. Third, we have our green color, which is called Fern Leaf, which is where we have our adventure, fantasy, generally just kind of like escapism books. So these are going to be books like All Our Hidden Gifts, Fourth Wing, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, The Nine Eyes of Lucien, that type of stuff. Then we have our yellow, which is called Sunny Haze, and this is for books that are low stakes, low brain power, kind of fun, easy reads, right? This is for when I don't want to think too hard about what I'm reading and just have a good time. So this is where we have books like Ella Enchanted, Howl's Moving Castle. We also have So This Is Love, Pride and Premeditation, and Love in the Time of Serial Killers. Finally, we have Blue Sky, and there's a reason I saved this one for last. This is our emotionally heavy color, right? So these are the books where it would probably come with a content warning, might have an entry on doesthedogdie.com, which great resource, by the way. So this is where we're thinking A Walk to Remember, Water for Elephants, The Color Purple, They Both Die at the End, Bedtime Stories for the Living, and Room. And now that we've talked about the color system, let's talk about the jars. This is the fun part. So my first jar you should already be familiar with. This is the Grading the Classics jar. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this one. If you want more details on her and how she works, you can go check my comeback video. I talk about it pretty extensively there and how it's going to be used, how it works. So I'll make sure to put the link for that with the timestamp down in the description. Maybe also up in the card. We'll see. The second jar, this is what I call my brain treats jar. This is for books that are going to be quick and relatively easy to get through, or that I just know I'm going to enjoy. So when I'm not feeling particularly brave and I kind of just want a win, this is going to be the jar that I pull from. Next, we have the wild card jar. This is for the books that honestly didn't fit in either of the other jars, hence why it's called wild card. Not just like size or amount wise didn't fit, but energy wise, right? This is all about how much energy is it going to take me to read. Doesn't quite fit in brain treats, doesn't quite fit in the last one, so this is kind of our middle ground jar. Now, before I explain the last jar, we're going to talk about some of the books that I have in the wild card jar and brain treats that I'm excited to read and kind of why I haven't gotten to them yet. Keep in mind, for most of these books, one of the major factors behind why I haven't read them yet is that I've been in a pretty major reading slump the past few years. So a lot of these books have gotten purchased, but were left unread because reading slump. If you know, you know. So we can kind of let that reason be implied from here on out. Let's start with the one that doesn't really fit with the pattern of books that I normally gravitate towards when I'm trying to find my next book that I'm going to read. It's one that I've wanted to read for years, but because it's nonfiction, it kind of keeps getting bumped down on my list. I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy is one of the only nonfiction books in these jars, with the other being Bedtime Stories for the Living, which was actually written by a teacher at the high school that I attended. Like many people my age, I grew up watching Jeanette on iCarly, and so when she came out with her memoir, I was already really interested in reading it because of my investment in her career as a fan. And I was also especially interested because it came out around the time where the public was being really critical about stage parents of child actors, the treatment of child stars, and also family vloggers were kind of coming into mass scrutiny at this time for the treatment of their children. Again, I don't normally gravitate towards nonfiction, but because it's Jeanette, because it has this kind of theme that I'm interested in of the treatment of child actors and the entertainment industry. I'm looking forward to reading it. Haven't read it because nonfiction. Alright, sorry if the framing is different. My phone ran out of storage and I had to deal with that. So, where was I? So, next we have the Disney Twisted Tales books. I actually have 5 of these, but one of them is at the bottom of that stack and I didn't feel like grabbing her. So, we have 4 of them here, another one there. I've already talked about that one though, so you can look at my last video for me to talk about that one in a little more detail. But like I said in my last video, I really love this series and I think the concept is absolutely genius. I've so far read Tales Old as Time, Go the Distance, Reflection, A Whole New World, and Part of Your World. What I still have to read is So This Is Love, Almost There, Once Upon a Dream, What Once Was Mine, and then at the bottom of the stack I have Straight On Till Morning, which again I talked about in my last video. There are 22 books in the series in total. As of last time I checked, I own 10 of them. Like I said, I really love this series. It's definitely one that I want to keep up on as they continue to publish these books, which, knowing Disney, I suspect that they will. And I just really think the concept is fun, and so that's why I keep buying them, because the concept is very exciting to me, and I like it. So the last book I want to talk about here is The Nine Eyes of Lucian, or Lucian. I forget how his name is pronounced. Oh no, what happened to you, baby? The bottom's a little messed up. Oh no. I don't know what happened to you, but I love you. I do. The bottom's like a little pushed in, which is unfortunate. So this is The Nine Eyes of Lucian, and it's a book based off of one of the characters from a campaign of a Dungeons and Dragons actual play show / podcast, Critical Role. It's pretty popular if you're in the D&D space, but wanted to give context just in case you're not as familiar. So this follows Lucian, aka Molly Mock Tea Leaf. I don't really know too much about what the plot is actually going to be involved, hence why I included both names. I've read one other Critical Role book, which was Kith and Kin, which followed 2 characters from their first campaign, a set of twins named Vex and Vax, or Vaxeldon and Vexalia. And I didn't watch that campaign, but I read that book and I really enjoyed it. So I'm really excited about The Nine Eyes of Lucian, because if that's how much I enjoyed a book for a campaign that I didn't watch, I can only imagine how much I'm going to enjoy a book about a campaign that I did watch all the way through. And it took about 4 years, because I started like at the beginning of the campaign. When they first started the campaign is when I started watching, and I think the campaign lasted like 4 or 5 years. So it was a solid chunk of my life that I spent with these characters. So I'm really excited to read that book, really looking forward to it. So there are also 2 books that I want to give an honorable mention to, and that is, you can't really read the title, it's pretty faint on the book, even in person, but this is called Leviathan by Blake Kilgore, who was my middle school social studies teacher. It's a book of poetry. I haven't gotten around to reading it, but I really love the idea of supporting my previous teachers, now I guess my fellow teachers. That's weird to say. He's known me since I was a child. But when I saw that he was publishing a book, really wanted to support him. He's an incredible educator, and I'm really excited to eventually get around to actually reading his poetry that I purchased. I also want to give a shout out to Bedtime Stories for the Living by Jay Armstrong. This is the other book that I was talking about when I was mentioning nonfictions that I'm looking forward to reading, when I was talking about I'm Glad My Mom Died. He was a teacher at my high school that I attended. I attended all 4 years. I did not actually have him as a teacher, but my school was small enough and that community was small enough that I was aware of who he was. So when I heard that he had come out with a book, again, really love supporting teachers, especially teachers that I, in one way or another, have a personal connection to. So I bought it. Gonna read it at some point. So it's time to talk about the final jar. This one I am affectionately calling Buck Up, Buttercup, because that is what I will have to tell myself as I actually open this jar and reach in. So this is for all of the books that kind of scare me, but I know I want to read, right? I have the desire to read, but usually for length purposes, they scare me. So they go in here. Because I know eventually I will have to buck up and just get it done. So not only is this where most of the longer books are held, it's also where a lot of, unfortunately, the nonfiction lives. So longer and nonfiction, I don't naturally gravitate towards it. And then I also kind of find it intimidating. But again, I want to read it, so I gotta just buck up and get it done eventually. Regardless of how interested I am in the subject of the book or the idea of it, I always hesitate to start books that I find intimidating or aren't really in my kind of comfort wheelhouse. Anyways, I want to tell you about some of the books that I have in this jar so you can get an idea of kind of what the makeup of those slips are. So the first book I want to talk about as part of this section is Josephine, the Hungry Heart, which is the story of Josephine Baker. Josephine Baker lives kind of in the intersection of a lot of my kind of special interests. So she was an iconic figure from the 1920s. She was an entertainer and performer. She lived in Paris but was born in America. She was a French spy during World War II, and she had a pet cheetah named Chiquita, which absolute icon behavior of her, if we are being honest. Icon behavior. She was an absolutely incredible woman and was so pivotal for that era and so iconic. I know I've said that word a lot when it comes to her, but she deserves it. But she was so pivotal for this time, not only with her contributions to French intelligence gathering and being a spy for them, but also as a performer in a very heavily racist Europe at the time, that she was inducted into the Pantheon in Paris and was actually the first Black woman to be given that honor. Though I do have an issue with the fact that it did not happen until the year of our Lord 2021. It should not have taken that long. So I bought this book when I was in college because for my student teaching, I was teaching about the Harlem Renaissance. And so I wanted to kind of include Josephine Baker as part of that because even though she wasn't in Harlem, she was still very much tied to that movement, right? Very active in the 1920s, very involved in that jazz scene, and was pivotal in kind of spreading the ideas of the Harlem Renaissance to the wider world. So I bought this book with the intention of reading it so I could better teach her to my students. But if you've ever been through student teaching, you understand why that didn't work out. At almost 600 pages in length, it is lengthwise a super intimidating read, but I am looking forward to learning more about my Queen Josephine. Do you think you're what they say you are? Jesus Christ, superstar. Do you think you're what they say you are? Alright, next book is The Romanov Sisters. Similar to my love for Josephine Baker, I have had a fascination with the Romanovs, and especially Anastasia Romanov, since I was a child. Is this mostly due to the pivotal piece of film that is 1997 Anastasia? Yes. I mean, that cast was stacked. Stacked casting. How would I not be obsessed? They had Bernadette Peters. Bernadette Peters as a side character. That's when you know the cast is good. When Bernadette Peters is a side character. That's my girl. That's my girl right there. I don't play about her. I do not play about Bernadette. I don't. That is the Cinderella stepmother to me, right? So, a couple of years ago, I was looking around at a thrift store. I was looking around and I found this. I didn't even really think about it. I just grabbed it and bought it. I know Anastasia, the movie, takes some massive leaps when it comes to realism and the actual story of the revolution in Russia and the kind of coup, I think is the word I'm looking for, that happened that dethroned the Romanovs. And then they kind of act like what happened to the family was a mystery, but it's not. From what I understand, it is documented, and this book kind of gets into that. So I am looking forward to learning the actual history of these women and what happened to them, and more of that kind of major historical turn in Russia. All right, the final book I am calling out by name is Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. Actually, this isn't the last one I'm calling out by name. This is the last one I'm mentioning in the Buttercup jar. So I enjoyed the show up until the last couple of seasons that I do not accept as part of the canon. We don't talk about those seasons. They don't exist. They don't. But I've heard the books are great. But I struggle to stay engaged with fantasy books that have like fictional politics, because I'm an American. Our politics are stressful enough. I don't want to be dealing with it in my escapism tools. That's not what I want. So I do worry that for that reason I will struggle with this book, but hopefully not. It is also on the longer side. There's an appendix? Hold on, I'm finding this out in real time. There's an appendix. So you can keep track of all of the characters and their houses and their ties to each other. Oh God. Guys, there's an appendix. For a fiction book. What devastating news for me to learn on camera. Awful. Horrible. So not only is there an appendix, really? Baby boy, too much world building. There's also 807 pages. What are we doing? What are we doing? There's 807 pages and an appendix. So, anyways, I don't really do well with like political intrigue in my fantasy books. Based on what I remember of the show, I feel like it's going to have a lot of that. And I just learned the devastating news that this is over 800 pages and has an appendix in case you forget who the characters are. I'm done. I'm done. I can't do it with this book. He's going to stay in purgatory on my head. He's staying in purgatory on my head because I'm mad at him now. And I don't know. So we're going to do some honorable mentions of books that would otherwise be in the Buttercup jar, but are in the Grading the Classics jar instead. So the first one is Lord of the Rings. I'm not going to grab that bad boy because homie is thick. Homie is thick. I think I got the one with like all the Lord of the Rings books in it. Like full set in one book. If you know me in real life, you know this is ironic because I have a tattoo in Tolkien Elvish on my arm. And yet I have never read Lord of the Rings. I've also never seen the movies in full. I am playing the Lego video game though. I think that should give me some sort of credit, right? But to be fair, my tattoo is a line from a play I was in, She Kills Monsters. That's the map that we used as one of our main props. And I played an elf, so that's why I chose to make my tattoo about the show in Tolkien Elvish. Okay, I'm taking Game of Thrones off of my head. It was fun. I'm glad I can balance a book on my head for that long, but she's not necessary, so we're gonna put her back. Right there. Nope, I don't like the glare. There we go. Now, for the longest time, I've been told that my vibe is very Lord of the Rings. Like, it feels to other people like that's something I would be really into. And to be fair, I have not disagreed. Because I do love the aesthetic of the films. I love the idea of being a Lord of the Rings fan. I just have not actually bitten the bullet to read it. I've owned the book for like 8 years, I think. I've owned it for a while, have not read it because it's long. It's long, and I've heard it's dense. I am excited to read it, but it's big, so scary. It's a big boy. It's a big boy. I also... Do I have it here? I do. I'm gonna grab her because I have her readily nearby. I have Lord of the Rings on a different shelf. But Les Mis. I know, I have the movie integration version. Similar struggle with Lord of the Rings. This book is long. It is, let's look. It is over 1,200 pages. So this may be the longest book I ever read in my life. It might be. I've also heard that Victor Hugo's writing is pretty dense, right? It's a dense read. This isn't going to be easy when I do eventually get to it. But as a musical theater nerd, I want to read all of the books that inspired some of my favorite musicals. And unfortunately for me, Les Mis is one of those shows and therefore one of those books. Listen, she's heavy. She's heavy. But it's also technically a classic, which is why it is in the Grading the Classics jar and not Buttercup. Otherwise, this is like the number one contender for Buttercup. Sorry again if the frame changed. My phone storage just really hates me today. I think it hates these longer videos from me. But we move forward. So now let's talk about the reason that I built this little shelf for myself and created this whole insane system, right? So I did all this because I wanted to challenge myself as a reader. I generally tend to stick to the things that I know I will like, and I don't usually pick outside of that. I love a comfort zone. So my hope is that by using the jars, I'll kind of force myself, or it'll encourage me to explore these new stories that, for whatever reason, my brain kind of just gets stuck and doesn't pick when I'm looking to pick a new book. I'm not 100% sure that this system will work, but I figured better to give it a shot than not try it all and still have these books unread, right? So I really want to work through these books, want to be able to read them, and then once I read them, then I can rationalize buying more books. So secretly, this is a very selfish endeavor to get me more books. I just have to put a little more work in than I used to. But now that you know my system, congratulations, you're an accomplice. And you are going to be part of the force that holds me accountable to making sure that I actually read these books instead of just buying new ones whenever I finish a book or whenever I happen to pass a bookstore or whenever I feel like it. So, I know you only came here to watch a YouTube video, but congratulations, you have a job now, yay! Alright, my loves, it is time for me to send you back out into the world. Thank you so much for joining me in my cozy little corner of the internet. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you back here soon. Be brave, be kind, and go find a good story out there. Love you. Bye.